I told him why I was funny. He said, hey, look back over yonder. He said, that's where Pete used to sit. Right back over there. He said, he's a good boy. Good preacher. I know him well. He used to sit back there. I said, preacher, what can I do? I'm a dry. He said, kneel down, boy. And I did. Say why? Because he told me to. He was a shaking change in his pocket. Said, breathe on him. Get up, boy, go. I said, that's all there are to it, huh? That's it. But it began a moving of the Spirit of God in my own life. But I didn't have him to go to. So I had to get to a laurel thicket somewhere. I went up on High Peak Mountain and cried to God, oh God, I'm dry, I'm very dry, and if you don't do something for me, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Oh, that wind began to blow. And every time I need him, he shows up right on time. Ezekiel, you'll notice in verse 9, God said something and he did it. Verse 10, the Spirit of God brings life. In verse 11, nobody is totally depraved. And when God steps in, we're not Calvinists, we're Baptists. In verse 14, God's got a place for you when he raises you up. God puts you in a church, stay in that church. Don't go hopping around. God's got a place to develop you. Amen. I remember I was listening to a preacher one time. He told this story. He said there was two boys about 10, buddies, pals. Said they everywhere Johnny went, Billy went. They was out riding their bikes. They went to church together, went to school together, played football together, basketball together. Hey, it's good boys. Said they went going down to the wreck, coming down the hill on their bicycles, and a car came speeding by and hit Johnny. When it did, he flew about 20 foot, went along the pavement, and got messed up pretty bad. Police came. So when the police came, they asked Billy who he was, and he told them who he was and everything. Next thing you know, they went and got Johnny's mom and daddy, and went and got the preacher, and the preacher called everybody, and they all got to the church and prayed, and they came down to the hospital, was praying. And they took Billy back home, and Billy said to his mama, he said, Mama, he said, I sure like to go down to the hospital to be with y'all when you pray down there for Johnny. She said, no, honey. She said, he's real bad off. He said, he's real bad. She said, you just stay here with Mama. And when Mama, we'll call her up and tell her how everything's going. He said, no, Mama, please let me go. She said, no, you can't go. So they took off, and Billy went upstairs and climbed out the window. And got his bike, rode down to the hospital. When he got down there to the hospital, he said all those church folks and the preacher was down there praying. There was a desk there, and he looked up on that desk and said, Johnny so-and-so, room so-and-so. He said they was all down there praying and no one seen, so he slipped out and went down there and found that room, and he walked over there. Boy, they had IVs, and they had tubes in Johnny's nose and tubes in his mouth, and had an air machine pumping his breath for him because he couldn't breathe. And all of a sudden, he said he heard that door open. He went underneath the bed there, and he hid, and there was two doctors. And those two doctors came when they was talking. They said, one doctor said, I think maybe we just ought to turn the machine off right now because this boy's dead. The other doctor said, well, listen, he said, all those Christian folk are out there, and they're all praying. He said, let's give it an hour, just 1 hour. And the doctor said, all right, in an hour, we're going to come back and turn this thing off. He said, we're not going to just keep this thing going. This boy's dead. They walked out. Billy slipped out from underneath that bed. And he got over there, and he grabbed old Johnny's hand. And he got down on his knees, and he said this. He said, Johnny, he said, this is Billy. I'm your buddy. Yeah. He said, breathe, Johnny. Just breathe! And he said it went on for so long, and As he was kneeling down there telling Johnny to breathe, he said he started feeling this wet all over his shoulders. And he looked up and that doctor was there. And that doctor was just a flood of tears. And he picked Billy up and he said, "Boy," he said, "what are you doing?" He said, "I'm getting Johnny to breathe. I don't want him to die." And he said, "Boy," he said, "because you were here," he said, "you got Johnny through the most critical hour of his life." And he said, "Look at him. Now he's breathing on his own."
Yes, sir.
And Brother Dave, when you're out on the road, and no one liked the message, and didn't give you no money, this edge is too rough, I ain't nobody. I'm just saying, breathe, brother. Just breathe. You preachers, when they want to kick you out, when you've done your best, prayed and preached the best you can, and they're still not listening, I'm here to tell you tonight, I ain't nobody. Just a voice in the wilderness. But I'm here to tell you, breathe. Just keep on breathing. And if you'll breathe, you'll get through the most critical part in your life. And when you'll do, you'll realize the need of preaching for the dry bones of the church today. Let me ask you a question tonight. If you'll be honest with yourself and just honest with God. Say, "Preacher, I'm going to be truthful. I'm going to lift up my hand. I'm going to be truthful. I'm dry. I'm dry, preacher. I'm so dry. I tried to do my best. I'm trying to do all I can. I'm so dry, preacher. I'm so dry. I need God to blow upon me." Breathe! Just breathe! Don't quit! Breathe! You young men that came up here, you don't know what you're getting into. But when you get into it, breathe. Learn to breathe until the sun shines in the morning. If God spoke to you tonight, get up! Get at this altar and say, "Oh God, blow upon me. Take away this dryness that I might live. And get back to the place I used to be. I need revival. I need you. I'm dry. And I can't go no more. There's a coming a day. You ain't going to be able to go no more. The journey's too far." You can breathe.